The following video and commentary is a compilation of information and interviews with property owners in Calumet, Fond du Lac, and Dodge counties, and Lincoln Township in Kewaunee County, all in Wisconsin. The reason for these interviews is to bring to light the issues individuals living with wind development are facing. Selection was based upon a cross-section of the population made up of hosting and non-hosting, farm and non-farm, business owners and homeowners. The questions asked were standardized, non-varied, in order to negate bias in interviews. The residents of Wisconsin have been experiencing wind development for several years. Of the 3 areas visited in this video, the 2 wind farms in Lincoln Township, Kewaunee County, began operating in 1999. The Horicon Marsh Project in Dodge and Fond du Lac counties were constructed last year and have only recently begun operating. The Johnsburg Project in Calumet County was constructed last year also, but is not operating due to complications. Being that large-scale commercial wind development is new to Michigan, we felt it necessary to travel to Wisconsin in these areas to find out firsthand what people are living with, what they think, and just how their lives have been impacted. We found the people in Wisconsin were more than willing to talk with us about their experiences, and certainly could have spent more time and talked to more people, but it became apparent after 5 days of interviews that the stories were similar. An interview with Andy Schroffnagel, a dairy farmer, was not able to be conducted by video because he was in the process of milking his dairy herd. He did spend several minutes with us discussing the issues of the area and hearing his experience. Andy wanted to do his part to help the environment since the state of Wisconsin is pushing for wind energy. In parting, though, he expressed a concern that he hoped he hadn't made a mistake and was very uncertain as to the long-term effects of stray voltage on his dairy herd, and seemed very concerned about the general effects of this type of development in the community.
Pardon me while I burst. Oh no, oh no, no, oh no, 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 no.
My name is Kurt Kinshu. I was born and raised in this area. I've lived here for 45 years, and we've been fighting this project for over 3 years now.
Do you know how people have been impacted by the windmills in this area? I mean, as far as noise or property values, or can you comment on any of that?
Sure. This project here, in the Brownsville area, Fond du Lac and Dodge counties, is a very new project. They just started building the turbines in fall of 2007. They're in the process now of completing construction, and they've got 86 that they'll be completing for now. At this point, there's been no issues with health effects yet. I mean, again, it's a brand new project. Some of these turbines aren't even online yet. They're not even active. We've had numerous people complaining about the noise. I personally received quite a few phone calls because I've been one of the leaders in the fight for the last 3 years. Okay. In fact, I will give you shortly names and phone numbers of other people that you could certainly go meet with and talk to. There are several homes that are currently for sale. Because of the wind turbines. There's at least one that I know for sure where the family sold their home right before the turbines actually started going up because they did not want to live in a moisture project area. That was the only reason why they sold their home. And there's at least 2 others that are currently for sale for this same reason, because of the wind turbines. I suspect with time there'll be others that'll be going up for sale as well.
What has it been like to work with the utility companies in the area here? I mean, or the developers? Is it an independent developer come in here, or is it a utility company that's come in here to put these turbines up?
It's an independent developer out of Chicago. The name of the company is Invenergy. They formed an LLC called Forward Energy, and that's the company that's actually put the project up. Strategically, they hired a local contractor to put the project up, knowing that this contractor and their employees would not fight the project because they would benefit financially. This particular company is called Michaels Corporation. They're based in Brownsville, and there's a number of employees of that company that are scattered throughout the project area. There's one for sure who in the beginning was involved in our fight against the project, and at some point she did back out because of pressure she got from where she worked. And that's something I've seen in other areas of the country too, where they tend to hire local contractors. I mean, A, it may be a little bit cheaper, but B, if you hire a local contractor, to build this thing, you're not getting the opposition.
So the jobs that are being created by the project are mainly construction jobs. Has there been like a windfall of jobs created by having these, you said 80 some plus 88 turbines?
Yes.
Has there been a windfall of jobs for the local community because of these turbines?
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, I mean, the construction process, these people are here for, the 4 or 5 months, putting the project up, and then once it's done, I mean, they're back to their other jobs. I know the company is going to have a handful of people whose job it is to, maintain the turbines and everything else. I'm not sure what that number will be, but I believe it certainly is less than 10.
Local people, or?
I'm not sure where they've hired them from on that. I don't know. But as far as any other impact, no. In fact, there's serious concerns about the long-term economic impact on Fond du Lac County and the city of Fond du Lac as well. I mean, if I own my own company, but it's a small company.
Yeah.
But if I own a major company, and if the local city of Fond du Lac or Dodge County or Fond du Lac County were attempting to lure my business here, if I personally drove here and saw all these wind turbines, I would say not a chance. I would not want to live here. I would not want to drive through this. I wouldn't want my employees, my management people to have to deal with this as well. So what does it truly do in 5, 10, 20 years to the local economy? And that will be seen with time.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add to what this has done to the local area, the economy, neighborhood? Has it been a positive impact for the community overall, or negative?
Very negative impact. I mean, there's numerous stories about longtime neighbors who no longer talk to longtime neighbors. We have several cases of family members no longer talking to family members. I personally have a cousin who her and her husband are putting 3 turbines on their farmland. Since this fight has begun 3 years ago, my cousin Pam has opted not to talk to me at all. Her husband and I have agreed that we'll disagree on the topic because we're still friends. She doesn't talk to me at all. We've got at least one situation where 2 brothers live side by side. One is hosting a turbine, the other one and his wife are totally against it. The families no longer speak to each other. We've had several families quit churches over this because they've gone to church, people hosting turbines no longer talk to them at all. And they're like, we're quit, we're going to go elsewhere. So, and that damage is there forever. We also had a vandalism and theft spree 3 springs ago, where a guy named Michael Elsinger, who at that point was going to host 2 wind turbines on his land, was actually out stealing and vandalizing our yard signs against a project. I personally caught him. I'm a former sheriff's deputy. I personally apprehended him. He was charged, he was convicted, and then I filed a lawsuit against him as well for violating my rights to free speech. So that's the kind of crap, for lack of a better word, it's brought to the community. Yeah.
What about setbacks? What's a typical setback from a home around here? Did they prescribe like the local community? Did they come in and say, we're going to go with a state model ordinance, or are we going to do some studies here on noise and impact to people? What did they prescribe for setbacks? Did the community get involved with that process?
The setbacks are 1,000 feet from a neighbor's home, unless the neighbor gives permission for the turbine to be closer. It's ironic, the company calls that their good neighbor payment. Like a good neighbor will say, well, it can be closer. So it needs to be 1,000 feet from a neighbor's home. It's got to be 440 feet from the neighboring property line, which is the height of the turbine times 1.1. Our local town board consists of 2 semi-retired farmers and 1 retired gentleman. For lack of a better way to describe it, these guys are dumber than a box of rocks. I mean, I've been going to town board meetings for the last 3 years. It's phenomenal, their lack of knowledge. And I am convinced that these companies kind of come in beforehand, check out some of the town boards, and say, yeah, they're not going to fight this. Our town board thinks it's a good thing. Or at least at the time, now that they get a lot of phone calls, they get letters, they've seen what it's done to the community. Off the record, they may very well tell you, yeah, we have regrets. But they made no effort to fight it at all.
What about revenue? Were they promised revenue through tax stream property taxes? I mean, were they thinking that, well, this is going to bring a lot of revenue into the community so we can build roads? What was their thinking?
Yeah. There's the company offers what they call shared revenue. You could also call it bribery money. I mean, that's like me coming into a community and saying, hey, I'd like to build this company, and let me offer you, X number of thousands of dollars if you approve it and don't fight. It's bribery. I mean, for my law enforcement background, that's the same as being bribed. Had it not been for the promise of shared revenue money, I don't know if our town would have supported it. But again, long-term wise, what does it really do?
How much money was promised?
I don't remember the exact dollar amount. I just don't remember the amount. In my opinion, whatever way, it's not worth it.
Not
With
worth
what
it.
it's done to this community,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. And again, I can give you several dozen names and phone numbers of people that if you've got time you can meet with, and they'll express the same concerns and others. I personally am fortunate. My closest turbine is almost a half a mile away. Initially, there would have been more that would have been closer, but they were eliminated due to the proximity to the Fond du Lac Airport. But I'm still against this project. I've seen what it's done to the community. Again, I'm born and raised here 45 years, and bottom line, it's ugly. It's ugly now. It's ugly at night with the flashing red lights. It's torn the whole community apart. It's not worth it.
What are your thoughts upon, because Wisconsin has a similar push, if you will, that Michigan does. You know, there's this big push for renewable energy. What are your thoughts on the renewable energy push by the state, the mandate, to have a certain percentage of renewable energy by a certain year? And what would that
Sure.
mean?
But bottom line is this: if the wind doesn't blow, they don't produce. There's two turbines that are about a mile from here that have been there for about 10 years. I can see them every day from my property. In the middle of the summer when it's hot and humid, the wind doesn't blow. They don't even move. We could put up tens of thousands of wind turbines in the state of Wisconsin or the state of Michigan. The wind's not moving, they don't produce. So all of the conventional forms of energy, nuclear, gas, coal, they're still running 24/7 regardless. And studies have shown that it's more efficient to keep them going than it is to shut down, say, a nuclear plant for 2 days because, gee, the wind is blowing, and then fire it back up. We can put up tens of thousands of turbines. It replaces nothing. It's feel-good politics. The wind energy companies they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on lobbying at the state and national levels, and it's just feel-good politics. Long-term wise, it's ludicrous. It's a fluke. 10, 20 years, this project will be obsolete, and I'll still be here to say, I told you so.
What's the general consensus of the people that live in the area with that mentality of the renewable energy push? I mean,
The only people that are in favor of this locally are the local farmers who are hosting turbines on their land. Outside of that, good luck finding people out and say, hey, this is really good for the environment and everything else. Good luck. You're not gonna
so
find
what
it.
you're saying is there's other things that people could do on a different scale, maybe for renewable energy, or maybe like
Solar.
solar.
So solar would be the route to go. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, we're talking to Larry Wunsch from Fond du Lac County. Larry, what can you tell us about your experience with what's happened here?
Well, this project started probably about 4 years ago when they first came into the area here. We got a lot of neighbors around the area got wind of this kind of late. In fact, I first found out about it when a person from the company came here on my property and asked if I wanted to host some of the turbines. Then we investigated over the next couple of months and found out the size of the project and how close the turbines could be to my property and stuff. And of course, there were a lot of questions, and especially there were a lot of issues. And as we got into it, we found that the energy company was lying to the board. They had kind of had the board bought into the project. It is a state project. In other words, it's got to get approved by the State Public Service Commission. And it just seemed like we were a small group trying to fight this. It was big money, and we just didn't have the resources or the money to continue the fight. And as you can see, well, I have one 1,100 feet from my house. Issues that we've heard about from other people that live in wind farms, shadow flicker, noise. I don't know if this one's sounding, there is a noise with this one here today.
I can hear the noise. It's quite loud. I don't know
Yeah.
if the camcorder's picking it up or not, but it's quite. And you said it's louder when it's windy.
Right.
There's not much wind today.
There's only about 10-mile-an-hour winds, and when the winds are like 15 gusting, it sounds like a jet engine on a taxiway of an airport is what it sounds like. The shadow flicker, when that is the west directions and the sun gets right behind it. This time of year, it gets right behind it. So I have a blade flicker that flickers over everything in the house here. I have a sunroom off the back of the house that it looks like somebody is flashing a camera. Now maybe some people can adjust to that, but I can't. My wife and I have a real hard time with this. We have a lot of money invested in our property. I mean, this is our home. Everything we have is invested in this property. And I guess the change from that to what we had is something that is a problem of what we're dealing with.
You know, you mentioned that if the windows were open in your house, that you would hear this noise on a windy day. Can you describe it? You hear it at night? Would it wake you up at night?
Well, here's what's the difference is. If you walk out in the field, you can hear the wind through your ears. But if you stand inside my bedroom, which is off the front of the house here, I'm standing in a completely quiet environment. And when I open up the windows, that's the sound I hear. I don't hear wind running through my bedroom. I'm hearing the sound of the turbine. So people will say, well, I went to a wind farm project and we listened and it wasn't that bad. But you've got to be in an environment where it's quiet and you open up the windows. That's where our argument is about the noise. And not only with this one, but even ones that are farther away. So, I mean, some of these are out 2,000 feet away. I can still hear those today.
How big of a project is this? How many turbines are here?
The project is cleared for over 100 megawatts. That means right now the project was 133 wind turbines. They have over 80 of them up now. This is a phase 1. They're going to go into a phase 2. So with the setbacks, they could actually put more into our township. I don't know. I sure hope they don't do that.
Have you talked to some of your neighbors in the area? How are they impacted and what are their thoughts on this project?
We have a group of neighbors that has pitted the township against each other. If you drive through our township, you can see signs. The signs will say, good neighbors don't put up 400-foot wind turbines. You know, it's all about money. It has nothing really to do about renewable energy. And I think the people hosting them are aware of that. But you know, we definitely, there are two sides in the township.
How many people or how many families would you say are impacted by this development?
There's probably, I'm guessing in our township, and we have this in the corner of our town, I'm guessing there's probably about 20 to 30 landowners that are impacted. Now, there's only about 4 of them, actually I think there's about 8 that are hosting the turbines. So the rest of them are non-hosters is what it is. People will argue that we're not my backyard people, but I would ask that when you go out to a person who advocates wind turbines, and especially the developers, ask them if they have a wind turbine 1,100 feet from their house. Ask them when they get out of their house, wherever they live, how many wind turbines they see. So,
what are your thoughts on how issues were handled at the local government?
The whole board, remember this, in the town of Byron, Fond du Lac County here, all the 3 board members do not live in the project. They live on the outskirts of the project. The 6 people on the Board of Appeals that decides on the permits, none of them, in fact, almost all of them can't even see the project. So that gives you a little insight of how that was decided.
Do you have anything else you want to add, you know, as far as what it's done to the community or how people feel about it?
My recommendations is to anybody looking at wind turbine development is take their time and study things, research it out. There's a lot of stuff out there. Wind development in the country is fairly new. In the state of Wisconsin, this is the first project of this size. They had smaller projects, but it was slam, bang, boom, sign this, sign that, let's get this thing going, and we never took the time to research property values, which we asked for, a property value protection plan, which they said we can't really do that, we'll never get the financing, which was nothing but a bunch of BS. They could have done that for us. That would have put me more at ease knowing that if I couldn't sell my property, I would have a backup plan.
Now, a lot of these projects are taking place not only in Wisconsin and Ohio or Michigan or New York. There's a big push by the state for a certain percent of renewable energy by a certain date. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a leading manufacturer that employs 500 employees in the city of Fond du Lac. They use 20 megawatts of electricity. That's their normal production needs, 20 megawatts. These are GE 1.5 megawatts, and they need a 30-mile-an-hour wind, almost a 30-mile-an-hour wind to produce 1.5 megawatts. You'd need 15 of these turning in a 30-mile-an-hour wind, operating at 100% efficiency in order to power one leading manufacturer in Fond du Lac. The state of Wisconsin wants 10% of the state's electrical to come from wind turbines. It don't happen. I've researched this stuff. Wind turbines are nothing but a scam in my vision. I think the ratepayers and the taxpayers are paying for this. My electrical bill went up 8% already. We're going to be paying for these things, and people, certain small shareholders, are going to be making millions of dollars.
Now, what about jobs? We hear a lot about jobs, that this is going to be good for the economy in the states. They're going to bring a lot of jobs to the area. Construction jobs, maintenance jobs, running. I mean, how good are these going to be for the economy, in your opinion?
This project, the construction started in September, was pretty much wrapped up by mid-January, February. It was one major construction company. I'm sure there was a lot of jobs it gave jobs for 3 or 4 months. Now it's done. So they'll have a maintenance group go, and I wouldn't have an idea how many. I would think a maintenance group to look after 130 wind turbines consisting of maybe 8 people. So they're providing work for 8 people here with this project.
Are these local jobs or out of the area, do you know?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay. Okay. You don't have anything else you want to add?
I'm willing to give my name and help people out. I think this is, like I said, this is going to affect our life, and I'm outspoken. I'm not afraid to look out about it. I'm not trying to grind an axe here. I just want to make sure people understand about if a wind turbine gets placed at 1,100 feet from their house. I just want people to understand that this is a possible impact not only on their lives, but of the lives that where the wind turbine is going to be.
So what you're saying, 1,100 feet isn't far enough away?
No, if it was a mile, I think I could live with it. Even though I don't like it how wind turbines, like I said, I think it's a scamming, it's a fleecing of America, to tell you the truth. But if it was a mile away, I could probably live with it. But 1,100 feet, no, I can't.
Could they come into a community like this and put them up at a greater setback and still do with the job?
They could, but state statute, now remember, the energy companies in 2001 lobbied to create a state statute which produced a model ordinance which says that they can put them up to 1,000 feet, which, of course, the board that put these together was all energy company officials. It wasn't me or a town chairman or anybody like that.
Okay. Larry, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I lived here since my dad built this house in 35. I farmed, then I worked for Department of Agriculture part-time. I worked myself up from the field to the county committee and then to the county executive. So I spent 22 years in office. And then I retired at 60. Now I'm 81.
Oh, that's good.
And I'm also a musician. I had a dance band 30 years. I still play a lot of piano in nursing homes.
Okay.
So that's my life. Farm, music, and government.
Okay. That's a good combination.
That's pretty good, huh? I
Yeah.
never worked in a factory. Yeah, this thing came up here, you know, they do a lot of tramping around and do tests, and they apparently found this to be a good windy area. But I think the big attraction was that Oregon Marsh is 30 miles long. And that lays about 8 miles west of here, where it lays. And it's about 10 miles wide, 10 miles wide, and it's about a good 30 miles long. From what they told us, the winds sort of pick up over that big marsh, and there's pretty good wind over here on this east side of the marsh. So they proposed to build over in this area here, more closer to the marsh. But then a bunch of these, what they call them marsh advocates, they got they put up a great big stink, and they said these turbines are going to kill the birds, the geese and the birds, and also the bats. There's some old coal mines down by Mayville. Mayville, steel mines.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of bats in there. They say there's thousands of them in there. And they're afraid they're going to kill the bats. And they got an organization, they call it the Oregon Marsh Advocates, and they fought this like crazy. It delayed this whole thing here a couple of years. They fought like crazy. And they spent a lot of money. But they lost. I think they lost because of big power and big money. And but then when it come down to the end, in the final phase now, they could build on this side of the marsh, but they had to stay 2 miles from the marsh.
2 miles?
Yeah, which is where they are now.
Is that originally, you mentioned this Horicon Marsh a couple of times. Originally, did they want to be closer to the marsh, or?
I think so. I think they felt when the winds came up over the marsh that it was strong near the marsh. Because the other day I just talked to him down there in Brownsville, and he said that they're talking about, they got 88 of them now they put up. But they want to put in another 22, but they prefer to build them closer to the marsh. So I think you're going to be pushing on that one again. The biggest other obstacle was all these city people that come out here and build homes. Bought an acre of land, they built a home, and they don't want to be disturbed. And of course, they don't like that change. And part of it is the change, and part of it is the money. I think the money is the biggest one.
The money,
The money that us farmers are going to get for the turbine.
Oh, I see.
And that bugs them severely, I think, because they can't get one, and because they don't have enough land, unless you have, we only got 80 acres here, but unless you have some land where the turbines are at least 1,000 feet from a building, you can't build.
How many feet?
1,000 feet.
Is that, where do they come up with 1,000 feet? Is that something that's prescribed by somebody, or?
Well, that's their general rule. Now, some people have them closer to 1,000 feet to their own buildings, but they got to be at least 1,000 feet from somebody else's.
Do you think, and I guess in your opinion, is 1,000 feet a good setback?
It isn't any too much, because my tower up here in the hill is 1,000 feet away from just the Hickory Road here.
Okay.
There's a guy built a new home there in the woods,
Okay.
and he's made a hell of a stink. He's filed a written complaint. He's really fighting it right now.
Is he 1,000 feet away?
Yeah.
Do you think?
And he claims it's noisy and it aggravates him.
Do you notice any noise here?
You can hear it.
What does it sound like?
Sounds like a jet plane
Sounds like a jet plane.
with a little whirl to it. Woo, 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 woo.
Okay. Is it?
Mainly you want to hear it unless the wind is blowing towards your house.
Towards your house? Okay.
If the wind is blowing the other way, you don't hear it.
Oh, okay.
But as far as I'm concerned, I don't consider it very significant.
Okay.
I would consider it, it's something I think that as time passes, you won't even notice it.
This type of development, if you had to stack up the pros and the cons on opposing sides, what would be some of the pros and what would be some of the cons for this type of development?
Well, the pros are it certainly brings money into the community.
Money for?
Yeah, well, we're going to get 5,500 a year now. Some, I guess, are getting more than that.
Okay.
And they're going to pay us twice a year, they said now.
Okay.
We're going to get our first check on August 15th. But I won't get a full 6 months because ours, he said, was commissioned on the 7th of March.
Okay.
So it'll probably be about 4.5 months. But then after that, it'll be a full half. But then it's going up, I guess, a couple percent every year.
Oh, it goes up a couple percent every, okay.
I think 2% per year.
Okay.
They're very, very good about, they bend over backwards with their PR program. And they're bending over backwards to help the people and pay us right. Now, right now, they got a bunch of meetings. They're gonna pay us for our land, where they destroyed. On top of the hill where they put mine in, they determined there's 5.3 acres of cover that was destroyed, that was sod. And I'm gonna get $2,544 for that.
In Michigan, our governor over there is talking about economic growth with this type of development, creating jobs.
Yes, well,
Okay.
they told us now they're gonna have, right here in Brownsville, putting up a They bought a big building in Brownsville for their office. They're gonna have full-time gal there all the time. They're gonna have 14 people working here all year for the first year, and the second year on, they're gonna be 7 full-time people here employed.
So about seven full-time jobs, and that's
From the second year on.
from the second year on.
Yeah. You figure over 80,000 turbines, and they're all getting, you know, over 5,000 apiece. That's a good chunk of money coming into the community.
Per landowner.
Well, I mean, that money is gonna come into the community.
Right. The landowners, they spend that money
They're
locally.
gonna spend for something.
Right.
I think we're gonna be buying things we otherwise wouldn't buy.
Okay.
I'm sure I will. The other thing is, at one of the meetings, they said that the town is gonna get a chunk of revenue from the project.
Do you know how much?
They told us that our taxes for everybody will be reduced approximately 20 to 25% if the town board applies that all to the taxes. The town board might take that revenue and spend it on a new truck or a new building or something, you see. It all depends on what they do with it. But the town will be getting revenue, a pretty good sized chunk. So that's not gonna hurt. The biggest reason I'm all for it is that it's clean. It's as clean as it can be. Probably the only other ones that are really clean are solar power or water power. And I would lean that way personally.
For solar?
For solar or water power,
Or water.
I think they could do more than that. But I definitely am in favor of the whole thing because I think we should get off this oil kick. We burn way too much oil.
You mentioned change, and when there's change in a community that's kind of disruptive, can you comment at all as to how that change has impacted the community? Has it been a positive? Has
No,
it been
it's,
negative?
in general, my neighbors are a little sour to me about it.
Sour to you?
Yeah, my neighbor up the road, he would always stop in every couple of weeks. He hasn't been here for 6 months because he's mad because they got the tower. And the other one's still got a big sign up. It says, a good neighbor would not put up a turbine, it says. And this neighbor over here, he's been bitching to other people. But in town, I haven't heard too much. In this little town here.
Why do you think they're mad?
But, well, they're mostly jealousy.
Jealousy?
Jealousy, because they says farmers are greedy. That's the general idea they have. They said we're greedy.
Would you say that the people who were making decisions on allowing this development to take place, did they listen to the concerns of the local people as far as the questions on what the impacts would be and setbacks and environmental concerns?
No.
I would say at the township level in particular, no.
By then, the company was so embedded with the township that there was no chance anymore.
They had to
We
go,
went to township meetings, other townships.
the townships had to go through their legal, I mean, they had to do public hearings and all of that because they're required to. But it was very obvious that the town board had their decision pretty much all made up. Especially in Dodge County, I mean, they listened to us because they had to, and that was all. They very clearly had their decision all made before the public hearing even occurred.
In the town of Leroy, which is one of the main townships, the closest one to us, the town chairman would come to the county board, the county meetings, not the county board, but the county meetings when they were writing the ordinances for the county, she would attend those meetings with with the wind company.
Always sat right next
Right
to
next
the
to him.
representative from the wind company. And the wind company actually helped the county draft the ordinance.
The wind company did.
The wind company did.
And what was, how do I ask this, the basis of their ordinance drafting? What did they base their facts on? Was it based on some type of sound science or planning or?
Well, what we've learned since, no. The answer to that is no. At the time, I guess not. I'd have to say we were uninformed. I wouldn't want to use the term ignorant. We were uninformed.
Even when you say people aren't watching their local government, we did. It's just that, no, you're not watching every single committee meeting, but we're very informed.
Right.
And yet this was very...
Wisconsin right now has a model energy ordinance that they recommend for the townships or counties to use. And that it has, if I remember right, I think it has 400-foot setback from roads and things like that, 1,000-foot setback recommended from residences. What we have learned since is that that ordinance, the model ordinance, it's not a mandatory, but it's a model ordinance that was actually written by lobbyists for the wind companies. And they drafted this, and it was just adopted by the state as this is the model that you should be following. And we do have a state statute that says that in effect says wildlife does not count. You can only base local ordinances on health and safety. That's actually written in the statutes. So, and then what we've learned since, and like I say, the model ordinance is written by lobbyists for the wind companies and has absolutely no science or legal basis for anything that's in the ordinance. And this is what all of our state representatives, right up to the governor's office, are telling people. This is the model that we should be using. So that that was the basis for the local ordinances that were being adopted.
Could the local community have drafted their own ordinance and taken into consideration?
That's what many have found out now.
What we've learned since, yes.
That's what many are doing.
And what we faced at the time, in our particular case, we testified against what was being proposed at the county, at the county hearings. And the wind energy companies sat there with their attorneys, and anytime we suggested that we should be having something more restrictive, they would state that the law says you can only consider health and safety. And I think we were actually not just, what's the word I want to use? We were threatened that if we do anything other than this model ordinance, you'll be sued.
Threatened by whom?
By the wind energy companies.
By the wind
They're
energy.
lawyers.
We'll take you to court and we'll sue you if you don't follow the model ordinance.
Because they would be at these public hearings. They were the ones.
What, when you say you testified for a committee, what were the areas that you testified on?
Well, personally, for myself, our organization, the Horkin-Marsh Systems Advocates, fought this project based primarily on wildlife concerns. At all of the hearings and everything, my personal comments, I mean, yes, I supported the wildlife concerns, but we always addressed both the aesthetic and health and safety. We didn't feel that what was being proposed, was adequate from health and safety standpoint, and we're very much opposed to it on the aesthetic effect of putting these things all over the landscape. And but that was my personal comments, even though we were being told that we can only consider health and safety.
Were there any health and safety issues that were brought up that were considered?
At that time, we didn't have enough knowledge to effectively rebut.
How about at this given time and moment?
Since
No,
that time,
there's a
there
lot
has been a
more.
lot learned. And
Could you share with us what you've learned as far as health and safety is concerned?
well, I think what you heard today from Jerry Meyer in particularly, I think reflects what we've heard.
Well,
There's been,
And there's that Dr. Pierpoint.
yeah, Dr. Pierpoint that I gave you the
New
one
York.
paper there out in New York is doing a lot of research along these lines. And what she is telling us is that there is substantial medical basis for concern about the effect of wind turbine noise. And she has very thoroughly documented research information and work that she's done. And there have been a number of cases, and the one that I mentioned earlier up in I believe Kewaunee County, where there was a lawsuit that the property owners won against the wind energy company. And there's other cases that we've heard about, one particularly in Nova Scotia, where a family just had to move out of their house because of the health effects that it was having on them. So there's more and more of these cases being documented where there is substantial medical evidence that there is health effects from the noise, the sound.
Now, you said that this is in the state law, that the only consideration that a local community can give in their decision-making is for health and safety.
Right. Well, the townships now that are working on it, and a good example of that is the town of Union.
And
But also
Trumbull
Trempealeau County.
has the strongest ordinance in our state now. They
They-
just passed it about a month and a half ago.
That'd be about right.
There's someone that,
They have
Could
done a
review
lot of
that.
research and gotten into the literature, and they are coming up with what they consider substantial evidence that there are health effects from these turbines if they don't have adequate setback. And I believe Trempealeau County is a 1 mile, isn't it? I think what Town of Union is proposing is a half-mile setback from any residence. I believe Trempealeau County's ordinance says 1 mile.
they're definitely the strongest ordinance in the state
Right.
at this time.
And they feel that they have adequate research information that if, they're threatened for a lawsuit, that they feel they can defend themselves. So now what the outcome of all of these these particular cases are, too soon to say. I'm sure the wind companies are going to try to overturn them. Whether they'll actually try to go for a lawsuit against them, personally, I doubt it, because I don't think the wind companies believe themselves that they have adequate information that they could fight it in court. They'll threaten it.
Well, I've been keeping a daily log, and I think it was March 5th, the turbine that's 1,560 feet behind our house was turned on. I didn't know it at first. I walked out of the door, and when I walked down the sidewalk, I heard this sound like a jet flying over. So I'm looking up in the sky for this jet. Well, it wasn't the jet, it was the turbine going. So majority of the time, it sounds like a jet going over. Sometimes the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of the blades turning around. We have another turbine that's about 2,800 feet across the road, and there's times when that's just as loud as the one that's right behind our house. In all, we hear 5 of them from our house.
Have you noticed any change in your quality of life because of the noise, or anybody in your family notice a change in quality of life?
The last Saturday seemed to be the loudest, with all 5 of them running. At one point I was walking across the yard. I had a little, I don't know, funny feeling, different feeling in my head, kind of like after you get off of a roller coaster. You're not completely stable. We have a 13-year-old son that came to us, we adopted through social services, that has a lot of issues, emotional issues, health issues, and a couple days after the turbine started turning, and I say that turbine, it's the one that's behind our house, he had headaches for about 3-4 days, pretty strong headaches, and he's on a unusual program at school because of discipline. Level 4 being the best, he can stay in the classroom with the other students. Level 3 he's in a special ed room. Level 2 he's in the special ed room but segregated from the other children. And level 1 he's in a different room, kind of like in solitary confinement. And after these headaches, he went from level 4 down to level 1 and 2 for almost 2 weeks. He'd come home and tell us, he'd tell the principal, he'd tell his teachers that it felt like his head was spinning 100 miles an hour. So we can't prove at this time that it's from the turbines, but we're thinking there's a connection. When we first heard that the turbines were going to be built in our area, my wife especially was concerned because he's kind of like radar on MASH. He hears a siren, tells us there's a siren, and we don't hear any siren, and then a couple seconds later, sure enough, the fire department's out or there's an ambulance run taking place.
What has the interaction with the local officials, either township or county, been with its residents? Can you comment on that as far as this type of project?
Well, I think most of the groundwork was taking place before the residents were aware. I think the energy people visited the counties, the towns, and it was, like I said, be blunt and say it was cut and dry. And then there's a few local residents that caught wind of it and attended meetings, tried to tell the town officials. Here it's very small township, as far as there's a chairman and 2 supervisors.
What township are we in right here?
We're in the town of Byron, in Fond du Lac County. We're in the southern edge of Fond du Lac County.
Okay. When you talk to your local neighbors, in this area, what's the general consensus? Are they satisfied with the project? Do they have concerns? Are they unhappy with what's taken place here? They feel that they had issues or concerns that weren't addressed?
I think some of the farmers feel they were misled, and after they signed a contract, the energy company pretty much walked all over their land. They didn't build roads in a common sense manner. They stayed off of fence lines. Some cases they went straight with the fence line and then cut diagonally across the field. I was at the first meeting when the energy company came and made public, made available to the public, and they said there wouldn't be maybe 1 acre to 2 acres of land disturbed on each site. And if you take the width of the road and the distance, some of them are 1/4 to 1/2 mile off the main road, they're disturbing quite a bit of land.
Now, this area we're sitting in, are there a lot of homes out here that turbines are situated close to that people would be affected by?
I would say yes. The majority of the turbines would be close to homes. And there's the setback, I believe, is 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
However, we're 1,500 feet and 2,400 feet from turbines, and we hear them. To me, they're a real nuisance, and 2,500 feet should be a minimum.
So you're saying 1,500 and 2,500? Under the state guidelines, they could essentially come closer to your home, and you're already being affected by the distance that they're at now. What would it be like if they were at 1,000 feet? Would it be unbearable?
I would think in time, only from what I've heard, that the low frequency noise, something we may not hear or be aware of, but it's in the air, and our bodies feel it, even though sometimes consciously we're not hearing and feeling it. There's one that's about 3/4 of a mile from my house. Last Friday night, my son was up at 1:30. I saw the light on, and sent them off to bed, and I could hear something, and I went in our family room, and I could hear what I call turbine number 6, which is 3/4 of a mile away from inside my house. You know, to me, that shouldn't be.
This is, we're just coming into spring out of winter time, so you haven't had your windows open and you're hearing the noise in your house. What, do you normally have your windows open in the spring and summer?
Sure.
Would,
We just install this new patio door, and that would be open, bedroom window, back room window, and I don't see where that would be possible. Or we have this little patio outside. I don't think it would be fun having friends over and trying to talk with the turbines whooshing in your background.
I want to ask you a question about your opinion or your thoughts, or people you've talked to about the state's renewable portfolio standard. As we understand it, there's a big push by the state to have a certain percentage of energy coming from renewable sources by a certain date. What are your comments or thoughts on that?
Gee, do you really want to hear? I think they should take all of the tax credits and money that's going to the wind companies and put it into first nuclear, then coal, and then gas. And because we're not going to lose even one of these other types of power plants because there's wind turbines polluting our skylines. If it was a good source of power, private industry would be jumping on it, and they would be thrilled to be putting them up without the tax incentives that they're getting.
Okay. So you feel that the main reason why they're coming in this area is because of the tax incentives?
Right. Another reason is because there's a very high voltage power line real close. I don't think they necessarily put them where the wind is the greatest. They put them where there's other advantages, the power lines being one, because if they put one off, you know, we say, well, why don't they put them out in a state where there's less population? There's not going to be as many high voltage power lines either. It seems like this is, you know, election year. It's a big political thing. The whole global warming issue, really, I guess to be blunt, is a hoax. In the 72, I think, 1972, I think one of the Time magazine covers was they were concerned about global cooling. You know, it's like they're always trying to make us afraid of something.
Okay, we're sitting here with Robert Meyer, and how old are you, Robert?
13.
13. Tell us about your headaches that you had.
I get like major headaches when I like go on the trails for snowmobiling. We get like my dad and I, we went on trails. We were going past some wind turbines, and I had my helmet on, and I got a major headache just with my helmet on, with the machines off and everything. Just right when we shut them off and everything.
How long do your headaches last?
As long as I can hear like the wind turbine.
So when you're away from the wind turbines, do the headaches start to subside and go away?
Yeah.
I don't call it a calming sound. It's something that shouldn't be there, and you're very aware of it. And it's what distresses me about it is you can't get away from it. I've had somebody say, well, there's a lot of sounds, trains, you know, whatever, and I can hear the train when it goes through in Byron, airplanes, whatever. But that comes and goes, it goes away. But this is something you cannot get away from, and after a while, you know, you've got to really work on getting your head set so that it's okay, you know, I've got to live with this. It's there, you know, it's not just going to go away, and it doesn't go away, and it's very distressing at times.
Okay. I wanted to ask you a question about the effects on the local community. You've talked to your neighbors in the area. What's the general consensus or the thoughts of people in this area since this project has come into the area?
Well, I haven't talked to a lot of people, I have to be very honest, but the people that I have talked to, anybody that is having problems with the sound or the lights or are very distressed about it, and I do know of people that have put up their house for sale. And I'm thinking about in those lines myself. I'm very concerned. This was my retirement, and I'm not sure what I can get for this property now. I'm sitting back here with turbines on 3 sides of my house, noise, lights all over, and then on the one side I don't have a turbine. I have the weather tower, which has a very piercing white light that I have that is very easily seen through my sliding door and on my deck. And it's like nowhere here can I get away from it, any side of my house, any part. So I don't honestly know. I haven't really looked into putting the house up for sale yet, but I am very concerned, and I have heard from people that are in the town that had that. It's very possible you'd have to look at 50,000 less for the worth of your home, or what you could get for your home. That is I always find this kind of comical in a way. They'll say, your place doesn't depreciate, it's not worth less. Well, no, it's not worth less. It's can you get what it's worth? And they will always come back at you. That's what I have had happen to me, it's not going to be worth less. And after I thought about it, I thought, oh no, it isn't worth less. It's just, can you get what it's really worth? And probably not. People will use that as their, to get the price down.
How many turbines can you see from your property here? Would you say? I mean, if you had to quantify that and count, how many would you say on a?
I'm sure over 20.
Over 20?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Out my west bedroom window at night, I see at least, over the line of my trees, 15 blinking red lights because I counted them.
Okay.
It's like just kind of like a show back there. I quickly put the blind on. I don't like looking out there anymore.
I want to ask you a couple questions about the local economy and jobs. We're looking for information regarding what kind of benefits this type of project is going to bring to the community. And one thing the states are talking about is that they're going to create jobs. Do you know anything about what it's going to bring as far as benefits, as far as jobs to your community, this type of project?
Honestly, I don't. All I know is that the people that put them up were from a lot of different states.
Okay.
One of my family members lives in a condo, and they lived above there. They're gone now. All the ones that were on the apartment complex where my family member lives all had Utah license plates. So not from really around here as far as that construction piece was that I know of.
Okay.
And I don't really know. I don't know how much is there to do now.
Okay. Maintenance issues maybe.
Could I just go back as far as
yes.
You had asked me about the neighborhood.
Yes.
I will tell you, I think it is the saddest part of this whole thing. I know of families that are broken up because of this. I know neighbors that are broken up because of this. This community is in 2 camps right now, and I don't know how this will ever get resolved, that people will again live. Unfortunately, I am in that position too, and I feel awful to think at my age that I have these issues with people that I don't feel I've ever had anything like this before. And they come, I've had them at my door and telling me that I should just be happy and be quiet, and I'm going to benefit, and if I don't do this, we're going to have blackouts like California. I've had it all said to me, and I've just chosen to be, I'm not arguing with anybody because it doesn't work, but I do know of many situations. Truly, I'm no guru on numbers, and from everything I've read, they are not efficient. They are not worth the tax dollar that we're going to stick into them, and we are going to pay. My only comment is, if this is true, I'm very much against it. If I would be in the wrong on that subject, then I would say, I would hope that other town boards would look at this and not impact homes and residences. Put them like they do in Iowa, out on these places, and Scott will say, you don't see a home anywhere near, and they have many, turbines, but they do not have any homes anywhere near them.
Would you say that one of the major issues in a development like this is that the
wind turbines themselves are placed in too close a proximity to residences?
Absolutely. Absolutely.